What's going on, guys? Chuck here with another awesome Blu-ray purchase. What I got today is a new release from Arrow. One that I might be a little late getting to. It was just delivered to me prior to the weekend that I had to go out of town for the weekend, and I hadn't had a chance to check it out till just now. So, a lot of people have probably brought this up, but here I am. And of course, we're talking about 1983's Blue Thunder, starring Roy Scheider, Malcolm McDowell, Daniel Stern, Kenny Clark, and Warren Oates. And this is a new 4K release from Arrow. Now, when Arrow announced this, I was excited. For one, this is like a title that no one talks about. I haven't heard anything about. It's just kind of forgotten about. So I was glad they were bringing it back. However, I was around in 1983. Now, I was only like what 8, but I remember when Blue Thunder came out. And I remember the hype around Blue Thunder, and it was marketed. It was a marketing machine, if I remember right. Maybe not a whole like you would think of now, but it was heavily marketed. Not that I knew about it, even though I never saw it in the theater. But I remember the ads. I mean, there was a toy of the Blue Thunder helicopter. Um, Now, I may be mistaken about this, but if you think of if you're familiar with the GI Joe action figure line from that time. Uh, they had that. I think it was an Apache helicopter. I think it came with Wild Bill was the figure. That was basically a similar style helicopter toy, but I don't think it was quite the same. But then you had the Blue Thunder, which they could have fit right in. You could put that Blue Thunder helicopter as a special GI Joe helicopter. That's how cool it was. But that was out there. There was a TV series of Blue Thunder. It was a mid-season replacement. It only lasted like 11 episodes, but it had Dana Carvey in it, along with football stars Dick Butkus and Bubba Smith. And I think I saw like 1 or 2 episodes of that, or in like flipping channels. I don't ever watch it, but it was out there. They were really trying to push the Blue Thunder into the mainstream. Now, I don't know how well the film did theatrically. But my mind says it probably didn't do too great because it kind of, it had to do something in order to get, some kind of promotion, even a short-lived TV series. But it's obviously faded out of the conscious memory, as no one talks about Blue Thunder now. And it's too bad because this is a really, it's a fun action movie. It's a kind of a slow burn. I mean, people today may not pick up on it too much because it's a slower film, but it's good. It's got some great performance in it. But the most important thing about this, and this is what amazed me sitting down and watching it, was that how relevant it is today. Oh, very much so. For those of you who don't know, if you've ever seen Blue Thunder, the premise is basically you have Roy Scheider, who is an ex-Vietnam chopper pilot who's dealing with a bit of PTSD. He's also a police officer, flies helicopter. He's kind of like the road cop named Murphy because all the road cops are named Murphy. He's got his new partner, played by a young, fresh, baby-faced Daniel Stern. And they're doing their patrols, and it's they're over Los Angeles, and they kind of stumble across some a political figure who's been attacked and eventually was murdered more or less. And there's a whole thing deal with minorities and uprising against cops. But the main thing is they are a year away from the Olympics. Olympics come to Los Angeles. It was like '84, and there's worry of having a repeat of the Munich issues and all the surveillance and keeping everybody in line. So they developed this new helicopter line as a way to monitor the public and for safety reasons, to be able to observe, just overlook and just keep everyone in line. And that's of course the helicopter that is aptly named Blue Thunder. And it's part of this, that's where Malcolm McDowell comes in, who's an ex or an old Vietnam rival of Roy Scheider, so they don't get along very well. But in the end, there's the whole conspiracy, dealing with political conspiracy about the helicopter and what its real intentions are for. And it's basically, it comes down to just policing and surveying people, which I think it's really interesting because you think of the time we live in now, and everyone's under surveillance. You're keeping an eye out. You have drones that can spy on people. You've got these great audio devices. Everyone's listening. The Olympics are coming to LA here and next year. I think it was or 26 in 2 years, or yeah, no, 26, 28 2 years. When are they coming? I was tracked, but they're coming to Los Angeles again, which is kind of crazy. And we talked about, there's always a fear of how much we're being surveyed or watched, or how much are our phones keeping tabs on, and social media. Like I mentioned before, the drones, they're everywhere. The black helicopters. So it's a film that's that really ages well, honestly. And the questions brought up, I think, later interviews. How much do you give up? How much of your rights do you give up to be protected? And it's a fascinating study, and it's a good movie. It really is. It's got a great uh, uh, look and feel. Some fantastic helicopter uh, chase scenes, and helicopter fights practically done. Which flying through this, the LA, which is great, and you get this great, bird's eye view of 1983 Los Angeles. A great scene with an old, I think it's called the Pickwick Drive-In, which they mentioned no longer around, but to see that's a big set piece at one point. But again, mainly the stunt work in here is great. Some great car action. I mean, it's so great to go back and see the early '80s films again with the stunt work. It's not CGI. You're dealing with real actors. I mentioned this on when I did Interspace, even though it's the late '80s, but yeah, this is same thing. The helicopter flying, some of the bike chase or the car chases. So much great action done. It's great and it's fun to watch and just be mesmerized with what they could do at the time with what they had. Whereas now it'd all be in the computer, and it loses some soul when you do it that way, as opposed to. I mean, it's safer, obviously, but I don't know. It just doesn't. This doesn't have that feel of real, for lack of a better term. So it's also got a great score by Arthur B. Rubinstein. Now, when I first heard the score, because it's like an electronic synth score, and I heard it, and I was like, "Gee, it sounds a lot like something from Tangerine Dream, who did The Keep, or was it Vangelis? I think it is, who I believe did like Blade Runner, something like that." And that's the kind of score that it sounds, and that's who I thought it was till I see the end credits. And in the interview here with John Badham, the director, he mentioned that the producers kind of were looking for someone like Tangerine Dream, but he had worked with Rubinstein in the previous films, and he told him that what the producers were looking for. So Rubinstein kind of came up with this quick thing overnight with a sound that sounded like Tangerine Dream. Badham shows it to the producers. I said, "Hey, look what Tangerine Dream mocked up for us." So that's great. Let's do that. I got a confession. It was actually, Arthur P. Rubinstein, not Tangerine Dream. Well, he's great. Let's keep him. That's like his job. And it's a great score. It's a great, uh, haunting synthesizer score. But I really like it a lot. This is just a fun movie. Again, for the modern audiences, it might be too much of a slow burn. I don't know. But to me, I mentioned before, I love films from that era. Just the look, the feel, the pacing of them. I don't mind a slow burn. Everything has to be, doesn't have to be not nonstop like it is, in films now. I liking it, building and knowing where you're at, and knowing how the action's going. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. I just really glad I was able to check this out again after all this time. The 4K, again, I definitely compare it to, because I never had, this is the first time I ever owned this film, but it looked and sounded great. This has a 2.0 and a 5.1 mix. I listened to the 5.1. It is a fantastic mix. It's got a great, robust sound to it, especially with the helicopter effects, back and forth. You got a lot of directional effects. It's the explosion. It's good. It's good all around. Everything looked great. There was some, it's a lot of night scenes, and for the most part, I think they came out pretty good. I didn't have any problems. My lighting is probably a little off here, but I think they were pretty clear for the most part. I didn't have any. They weren't like bleeding or where I couldn't see them. But I got them. But there was a lot of night scenes on here. But yeah, it's good. It's like a good set of features on here as well. So, but let's take a look. Here's the slip, back, and here's the reverse artwork, which is like the original poster. And like I said, the Blue Thunder helicopter, it makes a great appearance coming out. When they first show it off and coming up from like the sunset, out of the shadows, and the more I watched it, and it's funny because it resembled to me, which is funny because Roy Scheider's the film. It has a resemblance with the back tail. It reminded me of a shark, a sleek, steady, shark, especially with that, back tail and the road and it's like Roy Scheider's flying jaws. It's great. Okay, inside we've got just your 4K with your special features, and the reverse artwork on this is the same as this. Got your ad for Evil Dead Rise and little card, and inside is a booklet, which I've not had a chance to read. Like I just cracked this open today, and popped it out and just watched it. There's the, and I'll say, here's a good shot of a lot of the cast. They were all doing a great job in this film. It's like one of Warren Oates' last films, and if you're not familiar with Warren Oates, he was a very big, Western actor. He's probably most well known, maybe not. But for me, people my age who grew up, remember him, has the Joel Sargent, I can't remember his name, Halka, I think it was, from Stripes. He's hilarious in that film. But he plays Roy Scheider's commanding officer in here. Candy Clark is bubbly and cute, and she's given a lot to do as to be a love interest, but I like her a lot. And Malcolm McDowell is just Malcolm McDowell. And it's funny, he talks about in special features that he is terrified of helicopters, and he had a hard time, doing these scenes of being in the helicopter, which I thought was hilarious. So let's take a look at the special features on here. So this is a 4K restoration from the original negative, presented in Dolby Vision HDR10 compatible, as the original restored lossless 2.0 stereo audio and the optional DTS HD MA 5.1 remix, which again is what I listened to, and it's a really good mix. You have the archival audio commentary by director John Badham, and editor Frank Morris, and motion control supervisor Hoyt Yeatman. Flight Risk, a brand new interview with director John Badham. A roller coaster ride, a brand new interview with actor Candy Clark. Catching Up, a brand new interview with actor Malcolm McDowell. Ride with the Angels, Making Blue Thunder, an archival 3-part documentary from 2006. The special, Building Blue Thunder, an archival featurette from 2006 on the design and construction of the iconic helicopter. The archival 1983 promotional featurette, extended scene, theatrical trailer, image gallery, and there you have it. So a lot of good special features on here. I just watched the new features, which was the interview with John Badham, Candy Clark, and Malcolm McDowell, which are really good. I will check out that 3-part, documentary, because I watched the beginning of it, and it was interesting to see. You got Roy Scheider in there. Also, Dan O'Bannon, of course, he was a co-writer on this, of course, you know him from Alien and Return of the Living Dead. So yeah, I'd really interested in seeing, because seeing these people no longer with us talking about this film, so that'd be really cool. And to get more in depth and detail on the making of it and the helicopter itself. But yeah, Blue Thunder. So glad I picked this up and got this. I'm glad Arrow gave this film this kind of treatment. This takes me back to my childhood, like I said, because whether the film was remembered or did well, I don't know. But I remember the hype around it as a kid. And it's something I've always thought as Blue Thunder. So I'm glad to finally have this. So there it is, Blue Thunder on 4K from Arrow. And that's it for this one. If you enjoyed this, click thumbs up, share, subscribe, leave me a comment below. Let me know if you've seen Blue Thunder, if you remember the hype around Blue Thunder when it first came out, or was the first time I've ever heard of Blue Thunder, or just say hi. I'll always take hi. So until next time, this is Chuck saying I will see you on the other side.